Well, good morning. Good morning. Got a couple of introductions to make. Krista Hamill, who is the OLLI program at UVM, is right here.
Yay! Krista's visiting. Yes.
So she's the one that handles your money. So get on her good side. The other guest we have, would you like to introduce your mom?
Oh, yeah. My mom showed up for one of my talks. So Bridget Butler's right in the front row. And I'm really excited that she's here because I've been trying to encourage her to come. I was like, this is a great community of folks to come and hang out with on a regular basis. So I'm so happy you're here.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Now, she's subscribed for the balance of the series. Very good, thank you. Okay, now we're going to be introducing our speaker, who we all know as the bird diva, but that's not why she's here, although she promises.
Maybe. I don't know. It depends on how you all are. I might slide some birds in here. If you're good.
You might hear some birds sound. But that's not why she's here. But let me tell you what she has done in the past. She's been working in the conservation field for 30 years and throughout New England, focused much of her career on effective science communication, conservation outreach, especially building relationships with landowners and resulting in collective conservation action. She's worked for Audubon, Vermont, helping to launch the Foresters for the Birds program, surprise, surprise, for Cole Holland, Canada as their program director, supporting the Woodlots program for forest owners, Echo Lake and Aquarium and Science Center as their conservation education specialist. She's also founded her own and run her own business, Bird Diva Consulting, which is where she's made several presentations here. Doing that for 6 years. And she's now the executive director of the Friends of Northern Lake Champlain, which is what she's going to be discussing this morning. Would you please welcome Bridget Butler.
Thanks, John. It's so great to be back with you all and to see familiar faces and get your bird stories, right? As you come in, slip a couple of those in today. They're always welcome. And like you know, it's all connected, right? When it comes right down to it. One of the things that I didn't share with John for my bio is that my degree is actually in marine and freshwater biology. So as I came through my career, I was always either working in ocean environments or settings, or like at Echo Lake Aquarium and Science Center with freshwater as well. So that connection to water is very strong within my own passions for being outside, and then turned into part of how I have made my way through my career. So I am 6 months into being the executive director for Friends of Northern Lake Champlain, which is a 20-year-old organization that started by a group of folks in Swanton and Highgate who were really interested in, improving the water quality of Lake Champlain, which is a big lake, right? So it's a big challenge. And so today I'm going to share a little bit with you about the organization and the work that we're currently doing. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about what we can do and what it means to be a friend, right? So as I took this position, I started to think a lot about, there are all these groups that are called Friends of this and Friends of that, right? And what does it really mean? What does it mean to be a friend, especially when it comes to conservation? So I have this quote from a writer named Leah Miller, and she says, "A true friendship is defined by knowing someone has your back no matter what. A good friend will watch out for you and ensure that you're safe, that you feel supported, and that you are loved. A good friend will never purposely lead you into making decisions or taking actions that aren't good for you. A true friend will always have your best interests at heart." And for me, this is the thread that I'm trying to pull through my work now with the Friends of Northern Lake Champlain. This definition really reveals that friendship is about feeling safe, supported, and loved. And I'm now applying this definition to my work here in Northern Vermont. I see a number of parallels to our work as the Friends of Northern Lake Champlain. So I encourage you to hold that word friendship in your thoughts as I tell you a little bit more about the organization, and especially some of the projects that I'm really excited about that we are taking on this year. All right, so here's what we'll talk about today. I'm going to give you a little bit of background into the Friends of Northern Lake Champlain, who we are and where we focus our work. I'm going to show you some examples of our work. I think this is so key right now. That was the one reminder we didn't do, did we, John? Mainly for me, to shut off the ringer on my phone. So I'll do that now. If you haven't done that yet, please maybe take a moment to do that. I'm excited to show you about our work. And one of the things that I was just talking with our new full-time project coordinator, yes, one of the new staff that we just added in the past 2 months, we were talking about this disconnect between having a real passion for doing the right thing and actually understanding what the right thing looks like on the ground and how hard it is to get to that place of doing the right thing. So I'm going to share a little bit about that today. And then I'm going to give you some homework. I'm going to challenge you and say, hey, what can you do? How can you step up and be a friend to Northern Lake Champlain as well? All right, so here's our mission for our organization. This beautiful picture actually came from the former executive director, Denise Smith. And she stepped down, I think, back in 2016, 15, 16, somewhere in there. And this is at Kilcare State Park. So Friends of Northern Lake Champlain, our mission is really focused around actions that are non-regulatory. I'll read this for you because I know the glare on the screen is a little tough from some of the seats. Friends of Northern Lake Champlain is a nonprofit organization that acts to clean the waters of Northern Lake Champlain and its watershed by working collaboratively with citizens, businesses, farmers, and government in order to reduce land use pollution. Our focus is on catalyzing the actions and accountability needed to reduce land use pollution and securing essential local, state, and federal funding necessary for successful implementation. Basically, that means we're here for all of you, for landowners, for businesses, for municipalities. We're willing to go out and do the work to raise the funds, to identify projects on the ground that we can do that will be part of this big puzzle of making a difference and kind of reducing the amount of stuff that we don't want going into Lake Champlain and having it stay captured on the land. So like I said, this organization was formed close to 20 years ago. One of the biggest projects that they had been focusing on at that time was the removal of the causeways. Do you remember this? You probably remember this in the news. Thinking that obstruction by the causeways was decreasing the natural flow of the water from Missisquoi Bay and the inland sea within Lake Champlain. Their work actually became critical in informing the Clean Water Act of 2015, also known as the Clean Water Initiative, or Act 64. So this small group of volunteers really made a big, well, gosh, I just was gonna say splash. I'll say it anyways, right? Because it's a good water metaphor. They made a big difference here, and they pushed a lot of groups that were polarized. We'll talk a little bit about farmers in a little bit, and that tension that's happened as we start to try to identify where the problems exist on the land and start to make changes. All right, how many of you live on the lake? Anybody live on the lake? Okay. How many of you live on a water body that might flow out to the lake? I do. I live on Stevens Brook. Okay. How many of you go down to the lake and hang out by the lake? All right. Yes. Okay. There. Everybody's got a hand up there. Super. So we all have a connection in one way or another to this beautiful body of water that's right kind of down the road. So let's take a look a little bit at Lake Champlain. This is a map of kind of just the body of water. And so we have the main lake and we have the South Lake. We're way up here in Missisquoi Bay. Part of our communities, if you're from Georgia or Fairfield, right? We are kind of part of this northeastern arm, like just the edge as it comes up in here as well. And then Mallett's Bay is down here. So this whole section up here, these main two, the northeast arm and Missisquoi Bay, are our focus for our work. We serve Franklin and Grand Isle counties. We have an incredible partnership here. I have never experienced a partnership like this. It's called the Missisquoi Bay Partners, and it's made up of the Regional Planning Commission, both the conservation districts for Grand Isle and Franklin County, and then all the little organizations that do other stuff, like Cold Holiday Canada, or the Missisquoi River Basin Association, or Friends of Northern Lake Champlain. Oh, I can't forget the Lake Carmi Watershed Association as well as part of that group. And we all work together towards getting at some of our goals for water quality. So the service area, we can break it down a little bit more. I'm going to show you another little map, and I'll point some things out for you. So we think of our work being in Franklin and Grand Isle County, the northeast arm in Missisquoi Bay, and then the other way that the state thinks about it is within basins, right? So we have the whole Lake Champlain basin, but then we have all these sub-basins that have like a main branch of a river that runs through them, or are part of what we call the direct lake. So this is the direct lake basin. It's basin 5. And St. Albans Town and Swanton, St. Albans City, and Georgia are a part of that. So that's part of our service area. So we serve, and when you hear talk about how we're getting funding, state funding and federal funding, we look for funding that's gonna come in to help, and projects that will help the direct lake in terms of some of these towns. And then also we partner with the Grand Isle Conservation District to serve South Hero, Grand Isle, North Hero, Isle Lamont, and Alburgh. So those are the areas that we're working in Basin 5. And then we're also in Basin 6. So Basin 6 is focused on the Missisquoi River and all the tributaries associated with the Missisquoi River. So those are rivers like the Rock River, which is in Highgate, McGowan Brook, as well, Pike River, Lucas Brook, Goodsell Brook, as we get into Enosburg and Berkshire and Richford. So this basin stretches all the way back to Newport, which is pretty amazing. So our partners, the Missisquoi River Basin Association, they tend to do all the upstream work, and we do the downstream work that's a little bit closer to the lake. I'm going to talk a lot about Rock River in a little bit because that's one of our core areas that we are focused on. I think it's really important for us to know our watershed address, right? So I encourage you to get to know those little streams and brooks, right? I think about Stevens Brook, right, running into Lake Champlain, which is a smaller tributary that comes from whatever the next body of water up is and the next body of water, right? So when we get to know our watershed address, we're also getting to know how all of this stuff is kind of flowing downstream into Lake Champlain, because every little bit counts as it happens, as we're trying to make a difference. And you all know why we're trying to make a difference, right? So how many of you have been down to the bay when it gets really bad, right? So this is a picture. So I don't know if you all have seen Armand Messier's work. He is with Northern Vermont Aerial Images. He has a drone that he flies around. You may have seen it at like the Maple Fest or any, like the tractor parade, right? It's that small drone that's like cruising over the city. But he's done some amazing work, and I'm gonna show you another recent video of his in just a minute to kind of capture that aerial view. So this is actually St. Albans Bay. So you've got the fishing pier here, right? And then you've got, this is Black Creek, I think, that comes out. I always get Black Creek and Mud Creek flipped around in my head. But that comes out into the bay as well. And you can see the blue-green algal plume and kind of the green sheen to the water. When I was hired as the executive director, I was trying to get a nice photo for the newspaper for the messenger. And the day that I went out with my kids to get a picture, we were at Kilcare State Park, and it was during the bloom at the end of the summer. And I kept trying to switch the angle so that you wouldn't get the green in the background. And then I was like, never mind, that's what the work is about. And so it's all right that that's there in the background. So blue-green algae is the focal point for Friends of Northern Lake Champlain, meaning that we're really looking at phosphorus. When I start to talk about phosphorus, people start to glaze over, right? If I talk about blue-green algae, it elicits an emotional response, right? Right? I'm sure you're like, oh my gosh, or the smell, right? Can you smell it now? If you close your eyes, you're like, oh, that's a lot, right? So really our focus is on prioritizing work that focuses on keeping phosphorus on the land and not having it go into the lake. So again, it's the major concern for this part of the lake is the amount of phosphorus that's going into it. And I think what's really challenging about this is our geography and our lake topography are kind of working against us. So this is a diagram of that lake stretch, right? All of Lake Champlain. I'll go on this side here. And so that north arm is over here in Missisquoi Bay at the top. This is from the State of the Lake report from the Lake Champlain Basin Program. And basically what it's showing is that the bottom part is blue. That's phosphorus loading that's within a good limit, right? We can't keep all the phosphorus on the land. We're not gonna stop everything from running off, but we wanna stop some of it so it's not too much. So what they've done is they've identified what's too much in each of these places. And you can see right at the top here, Missisquoi Bay and St. Albans Bay are way in the red. We are way up high. And the things that are working against us is that it's shallow. We have very shallow waters up here. And our land, the way that we use our land is very heavily agriculturally based, right? And so those provide some really big challenges in terms of keeping phosphorus on the land. I will tell you that I was at a talk recently where we are doing really good at lowering that number in our region. So I just listened to a talk from the state recently about where we're at with making our goals. And while our goals for our area are huge, we are making strides for that. And that phosphorus is starting to be reduced. Now, I'll tell you something. We're not gonna get rid of it all. And if we do everything perfectly on the land, we're still gonna have legacy phosphorus, and we're still gonna have blue-green algal blooms. So it's not ever going to go away. One of the other things that happened when I got the job, somebody was really lovely online and was like, yay, I'm so happy that you're gonna be taking this role. Now the lake will get cleaned up. And I was like, oh my gosh, if only I had that power, right? And I don't. And I think that's the other thing that we need to be really realistic about is there's phosphorus in the sediments of Lake Champlain that are released every year. They're just there. We call it legacy phosphorus. And so it's always going to come back. But we can improve with what we're doing moving forward. And in the face of climate change, especially when it comes to the higher rain events that we're having and flooding events, whatever we do to keep phosphorus on the land is also good for flood resiliency. So keep that in mind as I talk about some of the projects, that anything that we do for phosphorus is good for flood resiliency as well. All right, anybody have any questions? Okay, so that's the heavy part. Now let's talk about the positive parts, the good work that Friends of Northern Lake Champlain is doing. So this is how we're taking on phosphorus. And in the 6 months that I've been here, I've been trying to zoom in and zoom out, get the big, look at all the little things that we're doing, find the thread that ties all of those things together, and then kind of zoom out on the big picture for what we want to do. And so for me, it kind of comes down to 3 buckets. So the first one is community outreach. We really want to be connecting with all of you and hearing from you and also sharing with you what we're learning about how we can do a better job of keeping phosphorus, nutrients, sediments, all that kind of stuff on the land and out of the lake. And like I said before, there's this disconnect with this passion that we have for what we want to do and actually the work that needs to get done. And part of the work that we do, actually all of the work that we do, I don't even want to say part, is non-regulatory. That means everybody that we work with has to be like, yes, I'm in, I want to help. I'm there for this, okay? We're not coming in and saying you have to do this because EPA is saying you have to do this, all of that. We are doing all the non-regulatory work and partnering and collaborating with people on the projects that I'm going to show you. So our efforts to engage the public are really important in connecting you with this place that you love, with the water that you love, with the rivers and the streams, all of that, and really helping you understand what goes into kind of keeping all of those places healthy and as clean as they possibly can be. So we do that by the next bucket, which is backing it up with monitoring data. So we have an Eco AmeriCorps. Her name's Hannah. You may see her driving around this summer. And we monitor 14 different sites up here, especially in the Highgate area. I'll talk to you a little bit more about those in a bit. And the whole idea there is to bring consistent data to our work. And so we sample on a bi-weekly basis as soon as all of that is gone and it's safe for us to send out our staff. And so Hannah's out there collecting water samples every other week. It's likely that this year we'll be doing every week through the summer. And then she also goes out during the high flow events. So when we have those big rainstorms, she's out there trying to hit the peak of the rainstorm, climbing down into all these ditches and creeks and scooping out samples to help us gather that data that we need to back up this last part, which are our water quality projects that we do. So we'll team up with municipalities, with the city, with the town. We'll team up with farmers, with landowners, with shoreline property owners, and we will help them identify places where we could do a little bit better, control erosion, maybe allow streams a little bit more access into the floodplain, and we'll get them the money to do it. So that's the other big piece, is we as a nonprofit are able to go out, write grants, get the money, and then say to you, we've got the money to be able to do this beautiful project that we help design for your property. All right, so those are our 3 buckets. That's how we're taking on phosphorus. And I want to share a couple of the projects that we're working on and kind of give you an eye a little bit into what some of those are like. Is there anybody from Fairfield here today? Okay, all right, super. So I'm very excited about this. This year, we will see the completion of a lot of these projects that I'm going to talk to you about are multi-year projects. They start with like the first year of identifying the problem and where the problem is. And then the next year, we kind of dig into those a little bit and we start making connections with landowners and we say, hey, did you know this is going on? We would like to help you with this, because then it's helping the whole community. And then that's like year 2 and 3. And then we work with a consultant, an engineering consultant. Like, I don't understand any of that part, which is why we work with consultants. And they draft up these big plans and they bring them to us and we bring them to the landowner. And then we go out and get the money to implement those projects and plans and to get the work done. This summer, I encourage you to look for signs out around the community, because we put signs up for where some of that work is happening. So this year, we will complete what's called a Lake Watershed Action Plan for Fairfield Pond. And we've been working with the Fairfield Pond Association over the past couple years to identify spots around the pond where there are issues and where we can kind of make some changes. So action plan is designed to identify and communicate the problems and solutions within a lake watershed, and I'm going to show you the whole watershed in just a second. To identify those problems and solutions within the watershed to protect water quality, wildlife habitat, and the whole ecosystem around the lake. The end product is going to be a planning guide that prioritizes restoration and different things that will be actions that you can take for that Fairfield Pond watershed. So over the past couple of years, we've been working with a consultant. We have a couple that we work with. We work with Fitzgerald Environmental Associates down in, I think they're in Colchester, and then Watershed Consulting, which is another group. This one we worked with Fitzgerald, and they completed an assessment and worked with the Fairfield Pond Association and the landowners in the watershed to identify projects, all non-regulatory, that require permission and cooperation from the landowner. So we're really excited to bring that report to everybody to you this year. We'll be wrapping that up and making that public for this watershed. So this is a little image from the Agency of Natural Resources Lake Scorecard website. If you want to totally geek out on data and like really dig into stuff, it's a really interesting website to go to. So yellow is the pond. The reason why it's yellow is that according to the state, it's categorized as stressed. And it's stressed because of the runoff that's coming from the land, mainly from erosion and agriculture. And if you know that area, right, up around Fairfield Pond, there is a lot of agriculture, but there's also a lot of forests too. The red line delineates the watershed. So basically, if you put a drop of water on that red line, it would flow down into Fairfield Pond. So it's really amazing. You look at the size of the pond and then you look at the size of the watershed, that's pretty significant, okay? So all of that, all of the water off of that land, gosh, like almost two lengths of the pond to the south is running into that area. And I think the really important thing to think about with this is that the plan isn't just about what's happening around the edge of the pond. It goes all the way back up to here. We're looking at the land all the way back to here. And we're looking at roads, we're looking at all kinds of things. So these are the types of things that we're looking at. When we do a lake watershed action plan, we have a methodology for that that's approved by the state. And what we do is we go around and we do these three different things. We do shoreline assessments. So this is Joe Bartlett. He's from Fitzgerald. And so the work's kind of fun because you get to go out on boats sometimes and like cruise around the edge of the lake on a nice day and take notes about what you're seeing, right? And maybe you see some birds too. I don't know. Maybe you see some birds. We also do road surveys. So we walk all the roads within that watershed area and do an assessment of the roads. And then we do stream assessments. This is another really fun job where we get permission from landowners to basically walk upstream and look at the streams, look where the banks may be eroding, look where the bottom is dropping out on that stream. What is the overall stream health? What are the habitats like around that stream? So really great, fun field work to be done. Hopefully I'll get to go out on a couple assessments for another project this year. And then after we do those assessments, the assessments give us information about where we can target our work. And we prioritize those things. And then we look for resources, and then we create designs to kind of tackle those problems. So really this is about finding the problems and coming up with solutions for them. They can be shoreline best management practices. So we might reach out to a landowner there and say, there are some things that you can do close to your dock or leading down to the water that are gonna change things for you. We have bioengineering designs that are put together. We come up with stormwater practices, especially for waters coming off of the roadways as well, that we can recommend to the community, to the town, and to the lake association. One of the things I'm very excited about this year is I secured funding for LakeWise and StreamWise. These are two programs that one is offered through DEC, the other one's offered through the Lake Champlain Basin Program, and those are for landowners who have a stream running through their property or are on the edge of a pond or a lake. And we come and we look at your property and we take some notes, and then we give you a recommendation for things that you can do that will hold soil, hold back erosion, that will absorb water, and then we can find funding for you to do that. So those are two programs that are coming this year that are really gonna make a big difference. Along the same lines, FNLC in the past 4 or 5 years have completed a number of shoreline assessments along Lake Champlain. So this includes the towns of Georgia, Swanton, and Highgate. And as a result of that, we have a number of different projects kind of on our radar that we can implement in order to improve some of the things that are happening along shorelines that are degrading the lake. So really, again, our whole goal here is to identify problems and develop solutions. And we do it in conjunction with the landowner or the municipality. The whole idea here is we take the workload. We take that workload and we take some of the responsibility of finding the finances to cover those things. So one of the things that we're excited about as a result of these shoreline assessments is we're able to provide towns with reports that they can use as they move forward with their work in kind of identifying places in their communities. And I think what's really interesting about this too is that you might see something like this and not understand what's going on. This is a culvert, right? And we've lined it with gravel to kind of slow the flow of water down so it's not impacting the soil on the other side, right? And it might seem like a small project, but these are all these little puzzle pieces. If you think about the land as all these little puzzle pieces interlocked together and relying on each other, each little puzzle piece is really important because it's part of that bigger picture. Who does puzzles here? Isn't it crazy frustrating when you get done and there's like one piece missing? And you're like, I can't look at it, right? All of that and there's one piece missing. It's that same kind of thing. Sometimes, right, there's one piece missing and we just need to kind of figure out how to get to that place where we can get that piece kind of put back into the puzzle. All right, another area that we are working, how many of you are familiar with Mill River? Yeah, maybe you've been to the land that's protected right near the edge of the Lake Champlain where the Land Trust has a couple of trails there. It's a really great fishing spot. It's an awesome birding spot as well. So Mill River is part of the Northern Direct Basin. This is down in the Georgia area and actually extends quite a distance throughout that town. The basin is pretty large for this one. This river is categorized on a list of impaired waters. So it's another spot where there are high levels of nutrients and sediments going into the lake from agricultural runoff and stream bank erosion. And so we've done a number of projects there. If you go down to Georgia, right where all the highway stuff comes in, don't get angry this year because there'll be a little bit more work happening there because the Mill River comes right underneath all of that mass of transportation. And so we're doing a gully kind of restoration project there, and we're putting something in. This is like deep sump. We call it the deep sump project. But basically, it's a bunch of different types of catch basins that will capture the water, slow it down, and help pull some of those nutrients out. We also have another one that's on a roadway here that I'll show you in a moment. And I'm excited about this basin because there's a variety of different habitat types in it, not only agricultural, but forest land as well. It's got that spot that many of us go to hike and to recreate and to connect. And it's something that is really visible right now, especially as this video came up online. So this is another video from Armand Messier. It's just from the other day. Last weekend with the rain event, with the heavy rain event that we got, okay? And so I want you to think about what this winter has been like, all right? And as you're driving back roads and farm fields, what those look like right now, what they looked like toward the end of the summer, okay? And I just want you to watch this video and see what comes up for you. Ooh, sorry. Okay. So this was posted on Facebook last week, and I'm always curious about the comments that pop up. Can you imagine what the comments were like? And the finger pointing that started to happen. And I got in there and I dropped some science, I'll just say, and a little bit of positivity. So I think this is where the disconnect comes in, right? We see things like this. This is a very powerful and compelling video of a sediment plume coming out of the Mill River, right? Do you see the green tinge already, right? We've had some warm days. Wow, is the algae already popping? Like that kind of blows my mind, right? So what I said in the post was, we really have to pause. This comes from my slow birding work. Slow down, get the big picture, okay? What I wish Armand had done, and I can't wait to work with him because now I'm really excited I've got all these project ideas to work with him, is to go do an upstream cruise. Like, let's follow the Mill River back and go upstream and see what's going on. And see all the different land types and see all the houses and all the farms and all the places that are all those little puzzle pieces, right? And so what FNLC is doing is we're doing the work to literally walk that stream, go up that stream and walk that stream and find those spots. And so for me, there are a couple things happening here. This winter, actually, let's go back even before the winter. This fall and late summer, super wet. Remember that? Like crazy super wet. What do farmers do in the late summer and the fall? If they're using best management practices, they put cover crops in. Yes, they're spreading manure too, but if you're using best management practices from the state, you're also putting cover crops in, and many farms couldn't do that this year. Oh my gosh, I need to spread manure. I need to drop my manure pit down. This is the time of year I'm supposed to do it before that December 15th deadline. And it's wet and it's not gonna be good and I can't get a cover crop in, right? So there's this tension that farmers felt, even the ones that are all in for water quality, right? So we had that problem, no cover crops, really wet fields, this need to still spread manure. Then we get a winter like this where there's no snow cover. And we've learned that what the snow does is it dissipates that melting, right? And that water that is on the land, especially when we can't get a cover crop in. And so all of a sudden we don't have snow and the precipitation is still coming and coming and coming, right? We experienced a number of different kind of little peak flood events all through this winter. You know, one even just that last weekend with this video, right? So no snow to help slow the flow and absorb thing, no frozen ground, right? None of that. So this is what the future is going to look like for us. And this is why these solutions are so very important. All the little puzzle pieces, all the culverts, all the tree plantings, all the rain gardens that we can do are going to help with plumes like that. Is it going to stop plumes? No, because plumes are natural. Sediment moves and flows and comes off the land and it is natural. But we can all do a part in kind of decreasing that. And I think so March 8th, that's what's really interesting about this, is really beginning to notice the potential and starting to shift our eye. It's funny, as I came into this work, when I drive around, I'm looking for birds. I'm looking for bird habitat. And I see the land through the lens of birds and bird conservation. And now that I'm back in the water quality world, I'm learning to look at the land through this water quality lens. And this is where we need your help too. When you are out and about, or you are on your own property, or you're walking back in the woods, or you're walking the farm fields that you own, where are those spots that are pinch points? So sometimes the needs are really obvious, like this road. This is in the Mill River sub-watershed. Anybody recognize this road? This is where one of our projects hopefully is going to take place. We're working really hard to get all the permitting in place, and maybe it'll be happening this year. This is Polly Hubbard Road, which floods often, right? And so not only is it a problem for the farmer, because the farm fields, you can see on the right side, that farm field is totally underwater. There is some crop that's still standing here. It's a road problem, so that becomes a cost for the town, becomes a cost for the farmer. And there's a property owner here too whose whole yard gets flooded each year. And it's because we put a road in and we forced the river to go in a different direction, and then it needs to come under the road, so we have a culvert that's not quite working. And the water doesn't have access to the floodplain, so right, the sides of the banks are too high in some of the flood events for it to spill out in a way that's going to be healthier for this whole environment. So this is the piece, right, is noticing where the needs are, starting to connect and talk with one another. We have a great relationship with the landowner that we're working with. He's all in. It's very exciting. And so we look forward to having a spot right within the Mill River watershed that will be visible for folks to kind of see this type of work, which will be really cool. All right, and the last project I'm going to share with you is the one that I'm incredibly excited about. This is the Rock River sub-watershed. Anybody been up to the mouth of the Rock River where the boat access is? It's another great fishing hotspot. It's another spot that during the wrong times of year, you don't want to go and hang out because it's super green and smelly, but it's also gorgeous. Look at that corridor. That's the picture from the bridge. And I think is it Armand Road? So go past where the Tyler place is, past Martin's store, and basically it's the first right. So the highway's there on the side, and you just keep going until the highway bends away, and you can take a right, and you're right up against the Rock River, and there's a beautiful access point there to be able to go fishing. So we've been doing work in the Rock River for 15 plus years now, and that includes water quality sampling, and a bunch of other work, including building relationships. Our whole focus here is to improve the water quality that's flowing into the Rock River. What we've discovered is the Rock River is actually pretty healthy itself. There's not the main branch, there's not a lot of erosion, there's good access to the floodplain, right? So there's plenty of space for the river to move and do what it needs to do. But we're seeing really high phosphorus loads coming out of the Rock River, and it's really evident when you get into those hot months during the summer. What has happened is that we've started to work with the farmers in this area, and this is a little shot of what the Rock River looks like. So the Rock River starts, it's kind of interesting. It starts in East Highgate and goes out into Franklin and then comes back. This is a USGS monitoring site that takes stream flows. You can actually watch this online in real time if you are a data geek like I am. There used to be one of these on the Stevens Brook where I live, and it was the thing that gave me the tip-off that our basement was probably going to flood that rainstorm that happened before Irene. And it was funny because I was following the rain gauge, and I see my neighbor shaking her head, right? So that storm before Irene was big for our neighborhood. Everything flooded. The bridge was almost underwater on Quinton Court. So I live right near Bob's Meat Market. And that was bad. And then Irene came, and I got on the stream gauge, and I looked at the stream gauge, and I was like, oh, this is all right. We're going to be okay, because it's nothing like what it was in the spring. And we get a knock on the door. And it's the fire department. And they're like, ma'am, we may need to evacuate the neighborhood because of the floodwaters. And I looked at them and I said, why? And I was like, the stream gauge isn't as high as it was for the spring. Where were you in the spring telling me to leave? So what's unfortunate is that funding for the USGS monitoring sites decreased right after Irene. And that stream gauge for the Stevens Brook disappeared. Gone, don't have funding for it anymore. So this is the other part that we don't understand, right? So why is it important for the government to have money to do these things, to put these boxes up? I don't even understand what those boxes are for. We need those monitoring places, not just for water quality stuff, but for flood resiliency moving forward. And so again, it's like that big picture, understanding the big picture and all the little puzzle pieces that go together. So Rock River goes in through Highgate, out through Quebec. Our Quebec partners are working on that part. And then back down and comes out in Highgate Springs, just above where the Tyler place is. And so this is 37.4 miles of streams There's a 22,700 acre watershed around it. 46% is agricultural, 36% is forested, and only 5% is developed. It's another stream that's categorized as impaired waters, and it's a high priority with the state for changes within all of the tactical basin plans going back to 2021. So what we've done our work. First thing, go in, let's build some relationships. Our board chair is Kent Henderson. He's the former owner of Northwest Veterinary Associates. Guess who's got all the contacts with the farmers in Franklin County and beyond? It's Kent. He's built relationships over years and years and years. And he is the one that helps us kind of make those contacts, build those relationships, have conversations. Those things take time. That's the other thing that's so hard to understand. I want the lake to be clean. I don't want it to be doing this anymore. It takes time and it takes relationship building. And so we have to give that space. And it takes a lot of trust too. Farmers are tired of being told what to do and how, actually, aren't all of us tired of being told what to do and how to do it? That's a really hard thing to hear. It's really hard. And so we've done the work to build up as much trust and collaboration as we can. Put a lot of resources into this. And I will say that the farmers in that area, most of them have embraced best management practices and are doing amazing work. So what we do is we host annual farm meetings to gather people together, to discuss what's working, what's not working, to hear from them. We have summer gatherings where we go out on the farm and we walk together and we look at different practices so that we're getting at that piece. And we really help farmers understand the practices and the needs, and we work really hard to understand what their needs are and really meet them where they're at. This is Hannah's hand, water sampling. Here we go. So Hannah is another core part of helping us gather data, right? So I talked a little bit about water sampling before. Sampling really helps us understand where we're at with those practices. So we have a number of little tributaries that flow off of all these farms, and we go and sample them on a regular basis. And we've been able to see where those points are that we need to do a little bit more work. Or we're like, we're doing all the work we can, why is it not improving? And so this year, we're really excited because the next part of the project is to work with our consultant to do those stream assessments that I told you about. But these aren't just stream assessments. I put ditch up here too. Because what we're discovering, like I said, it's not the main branch of the Rock River that's in tough shape. It's all those little tiny tributaries and ditches and things that kind of peel off of the river. So we're gonna walk, well, not all of them, but we've got 10 tributaries that we're gonna try to walk this summer, take pictures, take notes. We are working with the consultant to develop a new model for assessing small streams and ditches that doesn't exist right now. This is gonna be a model for the whole state. This is why this is so exciting. I constantly have to explain to people, right? People are like, it's taken you 15 years to do this. Yeah, it's taken us 15 years to do this. This is great. This is really good work, and this is gonna push us forward. It takes, again, relationships, pulling together the data to show the trends, and now we're gonna get at the action. So really super cool and very excited to see what comes out of the report that we'll be finishing up in 2025 on the Rock River. Awesome. Any questions? Ooh, yes.
Yes, several questions. It deals with the industrial and residential development of Franklin County, which is huge, expanding at a much, much faster rate. You know, and I'm sure it's something that's, you know, really, really, you know, not too comfortable for you.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think look, if you would, I guess, would develop a relationship with the Franklin County Industrial Corporation. I mean, if you've ever taken a ride down through there,
Yeah.
and the hugeness, and I didn't know that was there, or you can go up to the curb up by the old carbon company,
Yeah.
and you have beta technology
Right.
moving in there, expanding, jobs, homes, and things of that nature.
Yep.
You know, so I'm just wondering, is it possible to meet with some of these corporate individuals, or these planning individuals, or even starting, you know, in St. Albans City and Town, and meet with Dominic Cloud? That's done a tremendous
Yeah.
job of really expanding St. Albans. Some of you may have seen as well, you know, if you get Yankee Magazine, yes, no, have you seen Yankee Magazine this month? Okay, all right. And Louise, which was backing up, Louise Haynes, what is the best town in New England that they have voted? St. Albans. Great. If you have a chance, get Yankee Magazine.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
And just, you know, look at the magazine, and it does a marvelous job with Franklin County, St. Albans City, downtown, and various
Sure.
other public enhancements, which St. Albans City and Town has done, and which, say, Enosburg and other towns north and south of us could or are equally you know, adapting
Yeah.
certain solutions or communications and things of that nature.
So the short answer to that is the difference between regulatory and non-regulatory. So when development comes into play, there's all these regulatory things that need to be followed. And so within the Missisquoi Bay partners, we have the Northwest Regional Planning Commission, and we have the Conservation District. And so the Northwest Regional Planning Commission, their wheelhouse is to really work with the city and the town especially, because both the city and town have been identified as MS4 towns, which comes out of the regulations that the EPA is putting on the state for cleaning up Lake Champlain. So so different organizations serve different roles and functions within how we address water quality issues. And so for Friends of Northern Lake Champlain, we're focused on the non-regulatory work, and the Northwest Regional Planning Commission is focused on the regulatory type work. So yes, and there's all kinds of different groups that are working towards that whole big kind of solution around that. We do some stormwater projects. Most of the time they're not within the city, or we haven't done many in the town either, because both St. Albans City and St. Albans Town are MS4 towns. And so pretty much everything ends up being regulatory. Yep.
Well, you know, it's a shame that you can't, you know, mix in.
We can't do, the thing is we can't do everything. We're a staff of 2, right?
Well, okay.
So we're and we just got 2 full-time staff. So that's the other piece, is like being really specific about capacity and focus. And so that's what I mean, that was one of the reasons why this job was attracted to me, is because this organization has its focus. It's stayed in its lane, so to speak, while at the same time supporting and pulling in other partners, so that when you do have community members that say, what about this? We know who they can go to for that piece, because we can't do it all. Yeah. Thank you. It's a great question though. And you know, you're gonna see in one of my tips right at the end that one of them is to get to know what does stormwater mean for our community? What is that, right? We have the town fighting against the stormwater utility and wanting to disband that. I think that's a big mistake. And I encourage people to do that big zoom out and really understand what all of that means and what the repercussions are if we decide we're not going to go that route. I have a question.
Yeah, you mentioned or used the term MS4, M4.
Yeah.
What, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, and I can't, I'm just wrapping my head around that. Basically, I think it's municipal stormwater. It's a designation by the EPA that says you are not meeting standards. And so we are putting a bunch of regulations in place that you need to meet in order to do better. And so there are a bunch of towns along Lake Champlain in Vermont that have been designated as that type of town or community. Yep, that needs to do that extra work. Yep. Yep.
Is there this sort of interest in organization on the New York side?
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely. And the Lake Champlain Basin Program is a funder that not only offers outreach and education, but they oversee grants and funding for both the New York side and the Vermont side. Yep. So and the Lake Champlain Basin Program site is a really good site to go to find all of those organizations. So you can look by community and by town and see where there are small organizations or big organizations to become involved with. I'm going to take one more question and then we're going to finish up because I'm seeing that we're close to time.
How much does the salting and sanding of roads affect the watersheds?
Yeah, that definitely does, right? So salt runoff, sand runoff. I know VTrans, has limitations on how much they can put on the roads and all that. We've looked at different ways of using brine as well, so that it's not all rock salt that's going onto the roads. Salt isn't, and I'm not gonna say that. Salt and phosphorus are kind of two different things. And I think sand as well, sediment buildup. Sand can sometimes be a good thing in terms of filtration, right? And it can sometimes be too much. Okay, so both of those things, right? VTrans takes into consideration, and towns do during this time of year when they're trying to care for roads. And we can too, right? Right? How much sand or salt do we put down in our own yards, and where is it going? Like, follow that trickle for where it goes afterwards. And are there other methods that we could use? That's like another little puzzle piece, right? Like, there are these big ones, but it's like, what are the ones that we are in control of? Those are the ones that we can use a little bit more help with. Okay, I promised you birds, right? Because they move people, right? And they capture people's attention. And so I want to share 3 birds with you here. And if we go back to the friendship thing and we're thinking about friends and connections and how we care for one another, like some of you may have come because you're like, oh, it's Bridget, the bird diva, right? So if you care about birds, like the black tern, right? This bird is at the edge of its breeding range here in Vermont. It's very rare to see. How many folks have seen black terns? Okay, so gotta befriend somebody with a boat, or if you kayak out to the mouth of the Missisquoi River Delta up there in Swanton and Highgate, and you'll have a chance maybe to see the black tern. They're very beautiful, jet black, kind of sooty black color, and they nest down in the cattails. They nest down low, and they're just beautiful floaty birds out there on the marshes and the wetlands there. So part of what we're trying to do is also think about how water quality affects birds. And we're also trying to think about how do we connect people with place and get them excited about doing the right thing when it comes to water quality. So if you're excited about birds, maybe this summer you'll start taking some little interest in doing some things differently. This one, that beautiful picture of the Rock River that I showed you, this is cerulean warbler. Now, I have had the great fortune of seeing a black tern, but this one is my nemesis bird. Actually, the next 2 birds are my nemesis bird, because each time I go out to see them, I don't get to see them. I've heard this one in the Rock River, driving all those little back roads and going along the river floodplain, but this is a floodplain forest specific species. It's not all over Vermont, and one of the pockets where it breeds is here in Franklin County along the Rock River in the floodplain forest. They need that type of forest. The river needs to access that floodplain to provide the right type of habitat for this bird to nest. Beautiful, beautiful bird. Okay, and the last one is the farmer connection. So This is another nemesis bird, upland sandpiper. Looks like it should be by the ocean, right? And so when I got this job, one of our first events was a gravel bike ride fundraiser up on a farm in Highgate. It was the first year for doing this gravel bike fundraising event where you get access to drive on all those back roads around the farm fields in Highgate. Rolling hills, beautiful fall day in September. It was amazing. Band playing afterwards, beers flowing, so good. What blew my mind was when I was driving up there with Hannah, she was like, yeah, we met with the farmer the other day to set up the gravel bike ride. This is really great. We're driving out the road and I was like, oh, this is that road where that upland sandpiper is, that every time I come to see it, I never see it. And it's on this farm that every time I've gone to ask permission, I haven't been able to catch up with the farmer. And we come up over the road and she goes, okay, turn right here. And I was like, no way. It's the same farm. Oh my gosh, so amazing. So Hannah is working on a set of birds and farms programs this year to show the intersection between good farming practices and what it does for birds. I'm so excited. Maybe I will get to see the upland sandpiper this year. Post it up. This is what they like to do, sit on all those farm posts and vocalize from there and display for their mate. And you gotta get up there in early May because then the grass gets too tall and you can't see them anymore when they're down on the ground nesting. And the farmer is shifting into farms as agritourism. So is kind of, growing out of having cows and is now moving into agritourism and food and recreation and all of that. And we have a great partnership with this farmer. So excited, right? So that's what's coming next. So to wrap up, I'm going to go back to these values of friendship and thinking about friendship and what does it really mean to be a friend and how can we be a friend to the land and the water. So these little things in the little circles up here, and I'll read them for you because of the glare. These are values of friendship. So the first one is empathy. And we're going to think about this. Put your conservation brain on and think about it through that lens. Empathy, having an understanding of a friend's experiences, emotions, and hardships. How can we apply that in our relationships with farmers and landowners who aren't totally all in, who don't get it yet? Loyalty, no matter how tough it gets, your friendships are a priority. This is a priority. Water is a priority for us. It is, and it's not just to keep the lake clean and pretty. It is a priority for us. Trust. It takes time to build trust, even in a friendship. Mutual trust allows us to share struggles, challenges, and problems. And when it gets tough, because we have a friendship, because we have a relationship, we can hear it even when it gets tough. Which means we got to be honest, and we got to speak openly from the heart. We got to tell the truth, the good and the bad. And we got to work together to push our way through those things. And respect is really showing admiration while honoring the boundaries and limitations within that friendship and relationship. So I really invite you to think about those values and think about Friends of Northern Lake Champlain through that friend lens. How do these things apply to our relationships with lakes, streams, and brooks? How does it shift your thinking or root you deeper into the cause of doing good things for water quality in our communities? I also invite you really to look at this through the lens of how do we do a better job of building the relationships that we need to do this work. It's hard work. Some people don't even allow us on their property. They won't even talk to us. I'll go back and I'll knock on that door again. Keep trying. Keep opening up, keep trying to listen. If we're truly going to be friends of Northern Lake Champlain, how do we stretch into showing each other the empathy, loyalty, trust, honesty, and respect to accomplish this work together? All right, tips to take home. I got 4 for you. 1, reach out to us about lake-wise and stream-wise. You got a stream running through your property, you live on the edge of Fairfield Pond or the edge of the lake, we can do an assessment for you. And we can follow up with some money for you if you need that support in putting in different things on your property. 2, that's that piece about asking about stormwater utilities. What is going on with stormwater? Start asking those hard questions. Reach out to us. We may not have the answers, but we know the partners that will have those answers for you. Educate yourself on stormwater challenges in your town. 3, local projects. Develop an eye for projects and reach out to us. Where is there erosion happening? Where are the streams? They're like all chopped out and how the banks are falling in, right? Start looking at the land through that lens and reach out to us if you see potential projects. And the last thing is to say yes, to try to open yourself up to all these non-regulatory projects either on your land or in your neighborhood or in your community. What will it take for me to say yes? I'm ready to listen to what it will take for landowners and farmers and all of that to say yes, because I feel confident that we can bring the resources and the assets and the funding to do the right thing for the waterways and the lake together. All right, this is how you can reach out to me. It's pretty easy. It's long typing. friendsofnorthernlakechamplain.com. It's a lot. So it's bbutler@friendsofnorthernlakechamplain.com or .org. And that's our website too, is org, sorry, not .com. And we're also on Facebook. Soon to be on Instagram if you're there. We're very excited to start sharing stories there as well. And I want to thank you all. And I want to thank John for having me back in this different capacity. If you didn't get your bird fix today, you can get it next Tuesday evening at 6:30. If you go to the UVM OSHA OLLI site, I have a brand new presentation called Deep Listening that I'll be doing Tuesday night online for that OSHA body. Thank you all. Happy to take questions as well. Yeah. What? Oh gosh, washing your car in the driveway. Yeah, it goes into the lake. If you have a hard packed driveway and it's flowing down, it's flowing somewhere. Park your car on the lawn, wash your car on the lawn, or go to a car wash. Lake Champlain Basin Program did this really cool series of posters, probably a good 10, 20 years ago. And one of them was about parking. The whole idea was that everything goes into the lake. So they had a picture of a guy washing his car, but it looked like the car was literally on the surface of the lake. So all the soap suds were going right off into the lake. They had another one of somebody walking their dog, like on the surface of water, right? Without the scoop the poop bags and things like that. So yeah, cars, scooping the poop. You see the Raise the Blade campaign. You know, these are all little things and you're like, big deal. Like if I do it, that's not gonna make any difference. It really does. Again, it's like the little puzzle pieces. Get them all together. Yeah. You're welcome. Thanks, Dolly. Yeah.
Do you speak to youth groups?
Not often. When groups, a lot of those youth groups don't have a lot of funding to hire speakers, right? And so when I was Bird Diva, now I'm an organization and we're small, so we do accept stipends, right? So we do need to cover our costs. That's the hardest thing about being a tiny organization. And when I was Bird Diva, that's like my livelihood. And so I feel like a lot of school groups and youth groups, unfortunately, don't have the funding to do that. And what I encourage them to do is to, I'll work with them on a different rate or helping them find a sponsor to do that. And I have 3 kids of my own, so I'm talking to youth all the time. Yeah. Other questions?
Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for coming.